You're listening to Consulting Logistics, presented by FreightPlus. I'm your host, Kyle McNaught. Thanks for checking us out. Well, it's another SCU30, supply chain under 30. I know we've been doing a lot of them lately, but it's just been fun to talk to the young professionals coming up in the field. And today is a special one because it's Lucy Smith, the summer intern for FreightPlus for 2021. So I'm starting to make this a tradition at the end of your internship. You guys sit down and talk to me, but it's going to be fun. Lucy's been a great addition to our team. So much, in fact, that she wants to keep this train rolling in the fall and stick with us. So Lucy, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, we talk every single day, even on Teams. So you're always talking to me, but doing good. You witnessed me setting everything up. This studio, in fact, is part of our creation. I mean, this is kind of cool thing. You're one who's going to leave a real lasting effect here as an intern because, I mean, you painted all these walls. You did all this lighting and all this type of stuff. I mean, talk a little bit about what that was like before we even get into the SEU stuff. But yeah, I mean, were you pissed at me when I asked you to do all this?
No, I actually like painting. Last summer, I painted a couple fences for my neighbors, so I was pretty much an expert. I painted my room over winter break with my mom, so I was super ready to do it. And it was fun. The gas was kind of a lot sometimes.
Okay, shit, we're cutting that part out. Oh, and now we're hitting the mic. Wonderful. Wait, so you painted your room? You're a sophomore in college, though. Why would you paint your room? Aren't you out of there soon?
Yeah, no, that's what I thought, too. And my mom loves to paint. So she was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Like, we're in a pandemic. Like, we have nothing else to do. So we painted it like a nice cream color. And it was awesome. It was really fun. So when I was asked to paint this, it was super easy. And it's really cool to see, like, something I did to kind of make an impact. So I really liked it.
Yeah. All right. We'll come back to this. We'll talk a little bit about all what we're doing here. But let's do a little intro. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, because unfortunately I know everything about you. But yeah, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
So I play soccer at Bryant, which is in Rhode Island. I'm in the honors program, and I'm on the student athlete advisory committee. So that's kind of like connecting the student athletes to administration, everybody. And I'm on the leadership council, so I kind of represent my class and talk to my coaches. I'm a global supply chain management major, so that goes along with the whole supply chain. And minors communications. And I love to cook. My specialties are chicken parm and street corn. Super fun. And I just like to go to the beach and hang out, typical young adult things to do, I guess.
That sounds great. But let's take a little pause, right? Let's rewind a little bit. Where are you from? Kind of tell me a little bit about that. Where'd you grow up? That type of stuff.
So I'm from Hummerock, Massachusetts. It's a little small beach town on the South Shore. I've lived there my whole life, so definitely love living there. The winters get pretty bad. There's a lot of flooding. Sometimes you have to evacuate, but other than that, it's super nice to live there. I can just walk to the beach, watch the sunset, sunrises. So pretty awesome place to grow up, I would say. Was
it all beach? You're just a beach bum, like hanging out there the whole time?
Yeah, when I'm older, I kind of can't go there as much because I'm here, but definitely like to relax, like after a long day, just walk down to the beach, that kind of thing. Just enjoy like the sunsets. Definitely one of my favorite things to do.
What about growing up? Were you into sports? I mean, clearly you were because you played soccer. You're playing soccer for Bryant, but what were you like kind of growing up?
Very interested in sports. Like you said, I did club soccer, so I was traveling all over the country kind of playing. So that was really cool, really fun experience. We went to California, Arizona, Chicago, Florida, like all over the place. So it was really cool to kind of travel with like my friends and play a sport I loved. That was like pretty much all that I did now that I think about it. Played like other sports like lacrosse. I did track, like to cook. I mean, pretty much just soccer, I would say.
I'm going to erase like to cook off this board. You wrote up, just so the audience knows, things about yourself.
This is not true.
Which I don't know how you would be confused about things about yourself. It's you. You could make it up. No one knows.
Oh, I could have.
You decided to like write down like to cook, and you reference that twice within the first 7 minutes of this podcast. That's wonderful. What? So it's all sports. Like, what were you like as a student? What were you doing there? Was it just like, I'm focused on soccer. Like, I really enjoy this. Or like, were you, I mean, clearly you're an honor society. You're smart. What were you like kind of student wise in high school or in like in elementary school, middle school stuff?
Very organized, like a little too organized probably, because with soccer, I didn't have a lot of time to kind of just do whatever. Like I had to be very like scheduled and I didn't have a lot of free time. So it made me like love to organize things, and I was a very like diligent, hardworking student. And I think that kind of stemmed from soccer. Like I just wanted to be successful and everything. So
Where did the push come from? How did you kind of learn to get organized? Was it just like you had one bad year at school? You're like, oh wow, club soccer really is messing me up? Or
that's a good question. I've been thinking about it and I don't really know too. I think I just like to do well and I like to work hard. And I think once I saw the results from working hard, whether it be like on the field or doing well on a test, I think I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like I worked hard and I did well. So I honestly think that's where it came from, but nothing like too intense.
that's awesome. Technology is a really interesting thing too. I mean, just you grew up in more of like immediately in digital and stuff. You use all the TikTok buzzwords. You're always saying like yeah, let's go. I'm on hype. That's cringe. You're saying all these funny things.
I don't say that's cringe.
You say that's
you say
cringe.
That's cringe.
You're like, oh god, that's cringe.
No, that's not
She says it a lot, especially about people in this office. I mean, we could do a top 10 cringiest like folks in the office. I think it goes God. Nick, Dan as tied for number 1. But
this is all Kyle's opinion.
This is absolutely not my opinion. Reading what's on the board. But yeah, let's talk a little technology because I always find that interesting. I grew up with, I got my phone probably like when I was in like going into elementary school, like middle school. And it was only because my mom didn't want to pick us up, didn't want to wait around in baseball anymore. So she's like, Kyle, you get a phone, you call me and then I'll come grab you. So it meant a lot of waiting around. But I mean, when did you get technology? When did you get a phone? Was it a laptop? Was it what was it like growing up with the technology you had?
So I remember I wanted an iPod Touch so badly. And I got one in 3rd grade, and it was the one without a camera. But it was so cool because it was like just released, like no one had one. And then in like 4th and 5th grade, everyone got the iPod Touch with the camera, and I was so mad because I had it first, and I was cooler at first, and then I didn't have the newer one. But yeah, like you said, technology's always been a huge part of growing up, and it's kind of adapted with me growing up in school. Like I've always kind of had to know what was going on with like Google Classroom or like Google Chrome or anything like that, because that's what my teachers used. And that's how we turned in assignments. And especially with the pandemic, it was such a big switch. Like everyone kind of had to figure it out at the same time. So I think definitely having to do remote school and everything, learning through that has helped a lot with technology, but it's just kind of always been a part of my life. So I think that's really cool.
It's something you were talking about yesterday that I found pretty interesting, even though I didn't let you know, was like, you were like, hey, like school gives me laptops. Like, that was not the case. Like when I was in college, which way back in the dinosaur ages, like you had to use technology, but it wasn't something the school provided. It was like, oh, here's Blackboard. You got to use this. But if you didn't have a laptop, you're like, how the hell do I go to library? But like, That's interesting. Like, so technology was more or less provided a lot of times for you, or was there anything that like you had to go out other than your iPod Touch, which I was in like high school, I think, when I got that. But what like, were you just always used to technology being provided like based off of systems, or was there anything different there?
I think it was kind of like you had to have your own type of thing for it to work. Like I remember in elementary school, it wasn't too big of a thing. Like we went to the computer lab if we had to do something, but in middle and high school, I remember I like bought a laptop specifically because it helped me a lot to learn. And I know it was a lot harder for the kids who didn't have a laptop because everything was done online. And there was like Chromebooks you could borrow at school, but having your own laptop, I think, was a lot easier. And with Bryant, they definitely need a laptop, especially I think in every school now, and every like in today's day and age, you just need a laptop or a computer because everything is online. You can't even turn things in with paper. They're like online submission only. So I think it's just like a necessary part of going to school now.
Yeah, I mean, that's hilarious about like they don't even want paper. It's like,
No,
it's probably because they're like, how the hell would I figure out if you guys plagiarize this crap? I were like, this is completely off tangent. We're going to talk about something else, but what's the policy on Wikipedia? Because when I was in college, they were so against the damn thing, and all of us college students are like, but I mean, this tells us what's happening. They're like, never use Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. Have they finally switched that, or are the college professors still idiots about this?
They hate Wikipedia so much because I think anyone can go in and edit it. Like I don't even look at it because I'm like, this could be true, this could be not true. And it's a lot of like cite your sources, do an annotated bibliography, literature review, all that stuff. So it's like I don't even want to use Wikipedia. Like it could be completely wrong. And there's so many other like websites and books and everything out there. I don't even look at it now. It doesn't even cross my mind.
Oh man, I mean, spoiler alert: the internet you can't trust half the damn time. So it's not like Wikipedia is this one big devil.
I know. I don't even look at it.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of starting to transition, getting into college and stuff. What type of topics, what classes, what did you find interesting in high school? I mean, because at the end of the day, you're a supply chain major. So how did we get here?
I really like the business classes I took in high school. It was like restaurant, resort management, like sports management. And there's a business club called DECA where, are you familiar with DECA?
Absolutely not.
Well, it's like a business competition. You go to like a local hotel and it's like a big conference. And basically you're given these like case studies and you have to use like marketing or depends on which, there's a bunch of different categories. I always did food marketing. And you have to kind of market a food and like a little, like you had to judge and it was really cool and I really liked it. So that's kind of where I figured out where I really liked marketing.
But you were doing this stuff in high school? Like you were doing these business classes in DECA? This is extracurricular, right? This isn't something or...
No, it was classes we could take at high school to count for credits, which I thought was really awesome because I was always interested in business more than like, I know math kind of is in business, but like science, like history, I like business way more than all those classes. So I really like that. And then DECA is where I found out I like marketing and really business. So I thought it was really cool.
That's awesome. I mean, all you ever did is talk about damn soccer. You didn't mention in this stuff. So like what drove you to kind of get into that? How did you kind of learn that you like that type of stuff?
I think it was just something that a lot of people did. Like it was kind of popular for my high school. So it was like it was a fun event for a lot of people. Like you got to go to a hotel and hang out with your friends. But I also kind of liked doing the business part of it. And my mom tells me that when I was younger, when I used to have lemonade stands, I used to want to sell it for $1. And my mom was like, no one's going to buy lemonade for $1. And I was like, well, I'll put like a lemon in it. Like I'll make it look fancy. And she was like, okay, yeah, you're doing business. Like, I think it just came natural to me since I was younger. So I guess I've always just been interested in that kind of stuff. And then really doing it in high school kind of solidified me wanting to go to Bryant, wanting to study business.
Oh, so that was more what drove you to Bryant. It wasn't like soccer scholarship or something like that?
It was both. Like all the schools I was looking at for soccer, my top 3 were all business schools. After I narrowed it down, because at first it was just soccer, like wherever. And then I was like, okay, well, I want to study this. So then I kind of combined the two.
How did you figure that out? I mean, it seems like a impressive thing, especially for kind of a younger person, right? It's all about sports. I want to play sports. I want to do this. I want to go like, how did you kind of realize like, oh, I probably should also focus on what my future is going to be? When did that happen? How did that click for you?
I think they changed the rules now, but when I remember the summer going into freshman year, my club soccer team was like, okay, make a list of colleges you want to go to. And I was like, I'm in 8th grade. Like, I don't know where I want to go to school. And I was really scared because I had no idea. And you don't really know when you're a freshman in high school what you want to do in college. I mean, you might, but not really. So at first I just kind of made like a list of schools I liked and then kind of narrowed down to like who would come to watch me, like who was close, that kind of thing. And then it narrowed down to, okay, I want to study business. And then I just kept like narrowing down to schools that I could see myself at and that I really liked and had a good soccer program. Because some of the schools, they didn't have business. They had good soccer, but it was like they didn't even have a business program. So I was like, maybe not. But it just kept like narrowing down, I guess.
That's cool. I like didn't know that. That's awesome. So you end up picking Bryant because of business. Was there a specific major or were you just like business?
It actually has a really good marketing program, which was my old major. So it was like I love the campus, I love the coach, I love the team, I loved business program, obviously. So then marketing just kind of fell into that. And it was close to home as well. But it's kind of interesting because I'm not even a marketing major anymore. I mean, I'm a global supply chain management major now, and it still has a really good program. But I think it's kind of funny to look back because I chose it kind of for marketing, and I ended up just working out.
So what happened?
I didn't love. Well, I'm a marketing intern, so I don't want to be like I didn't love marketing. But
you're like a supply chain marketing intern / communications. I mean, you run out the gamut of what we're doing, but it's fine to say you hate marketing. I'm not a fan of marketing.
I don't hate it, but I just like. I feel like I'm a very analytical, like organized person. So I feel like doing supply chain, I was just more interested in that than kind of like creating content and doing like the marketing aspect. I know that's what I do. um, but I think supply chain just kind of interests me more than marketing. So I kind of like went in that direction.
Was this something you learned in classes, or how did you kind of start realizing like, yeah, the creative crap is kind of baloney, and like I want to do something that's a little more hands-on? Or like how did you get exposure to that?
I had another internship and I really liked it, but I wasn't sure if it was for me after kind of getting the experience, which is one of the good things about internships. And like I said, I'm really organized and I wanted to kind of do that more instead of just like, oh, here's a business, like create like an ad for them. I wanted to kind of like organize everything more. So that, I guess, in taking classes, I realized I like to do supply chain a lot more. Excuse me.
I mean, what interests you about supply chain? It's just that you're seeing goods move through like a linear line of like, how does it get from here to there? Or what kind of, I mean, it's interesting, right? You're kind of more of a unique person in the supply chain. Most of the time it's like, as you watch the SCUs, you kind of pick up on kind of who's out there. But like, what did you find interesting about it?
I think after or like kind of during the pandemic and kind of how everything can change so quickly and you kind of always need someone to organize and like delegate what's going where. And I've learned here like booking the freight, all the carriers, that kind of thing. I think that's really interesting to me. Yeah, that's
No, that's cool. I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's something that no, because I think it's interesting. I hate to use the interesting word because we keep just saying that back and forth, but it's something that like I think we could see a renaissance of younger professionals entering the supply chain based off the pandemic, because it was stuff like witnessing toilet paper being gone, the Chick-fil-A sandwich debacle, which wasn't about that, but like those little things that you kind of like, oh man, why is this out? Like, because you've grown up with Amazon 2-day delivery, you grew up with this whole like, you don't wait for anything. Like you go online and buy right away. You probably shop e-commerce. I'm speaking at you, so I apologize if I am, but that it's something that I think is pretty cool, and it's kind of fun to hear you explain that, because I mean, was that like you weren't even thinking supply chain, but all of a sudden when things went away, were you like, oh, wait a second, why is this happening?
Yeah, and I'd never really considered it as a major because I was very like, I want to do marketing, I want to do advertising. And then I realized like, oh, well, I kind of like organizing. I like putting things in order. Maybe I should do that instead of marketing. So I think it's just kind of being in college, kind of realizing what I like and what I didn't like, and taking classes that kind of had to do with supply chain and organizing and things like that. And I kind of like that more than classes that didn't really have that aspect.
I mean, something that's fascinating to me is that you were able to do this transition during the pandemic. How did you do that? Because like I was so unmotivated. I barely wanted to do anything. I had a job and like I was like, I don't know, I'll finish this and see what it takes me. Like, how did you find that motivation during the pandemic to be like, I know I thought I was going to be in marketing, but let's try the supply chain stuff?
I think it's just because the pandemic was happening, but also school was happening at the same time. Like nothing really stopped. So for me, I still had to go to class. I still had to do all this. So I was constantly thinking about what I wanted to do. And at Bryant, at the end of your sophomore year, you declare your major. So I was kind of like, okay, I need to figure out what I kind of have to do. It was kind of the time, all the timing worked out, I guess. So I had my marketing internship in the winter. And then I kind of figured out, okay, I like this, but I don't love it. I kind of want to do something else. And then a couple months later, I had to declare my major. So it kind of all happened at the same time.
Dude, but you're doing this during a COVID soccer season.
Yeah.
How are you doing this? How are you that smart? Because like you and I have talked a little bit about with COVID, like it wasn't fun.
No.
Like you had to be isolated. Maybe that's how, right? You're just bored out of your mind.
Yeah,
so you're like, I guess I'm going to focus on this. But like, it still seems like you would have been more concerned about a billion other things than like, oh, what my future is going to be. Like, I'm impressed by you is all I'm trying to get across. All right. So you kind of have made that decision. You made the declarative statement of I'm going to go in here, but you're also very smart. You understand that like, hey, whatever it is, and exposure and stuff like that. Talk to me a little bit about why you wanted to do an internship, a marketing internship, after you declared that you hate marketing and they're stupid and you hate every single one of them.
I don't hate marketing. Well, I think it worked out in the best case scenario, this internship, I think, because I was just kind of looking for an internship in general. I applied to a lot of marketing ones, and I was just kind of applying to them just to have an internship. Like, I knew I didn't really want to do marketing, but I kind of just wanted an internship. And then this was like the perfect opportunity because I knew a lot about marketing. I could do marketing, and I could also learn about supply chain because I could sit in a class and learn, but I don't think it's the same as like getting the hands-on experience with a supply chain company. And I think it was just awesome having it come together because like sitting here and just hearing everyone talk and looking into the news and things like that is how I learned. And I don't want to say I'm an expert, but I learned a lot about the logistics industry by just like being here, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about what do you tell me a little bit about the experience from your perspective, because my perspective was like, oh crap, I'm not giving her enough supply chain experience. It's more marketing. I mean, what did you think before you entered here, kind of during it, and then kind of now as we start to sort of wrap up / not, because you're going to stick on because you're like, I can get credit hours from this fool. Talk to me through kind of your experience a little bit with the internship for the past couple months.
I was really intimidated at first just because I didn't know anything about what's going on in the logistics industry. Like, I followed the news a little bit, but I didn't know anything about all the types of transportation, and I had no idea what was going on pretty much. But then I kind of learned through repetition, like writing the newsletters, writing the LinkedIn posts, just keeping up with the news and like hearing people talk in the meetings and everything like that just kind of like stuck with me. Because at first I was like, what's LTL? Like, what's IMDL? And now I'm like, oh my God, the highway diesel fuel price is dropping. Like, let's go. Like, it's
I told you use TikTok slang.
That's not even TikTok. That's just, am I a millennial? Am I Gen Z?
You're Gen Z.
I think that's just Gen Z talk. I'm like, yes.
AKA TikTok talk.
I guess, TikTok if we want to categorize it. And I'm like keeping up with all that stuff. And I think 2 months ago, I would have been like, what does this even mean? And it's really cool to see how it plays out in the real world. Like, one of my best friends works for a restaurant, and she was like, we're out of lettuce, we're out of chicken. And I'm like, well, I know why. And we were just talking, and I was like,
that's all you did. I know why. It sucks to suck.
Well, no, because I was like, oh my gosh, I literally just read about that at work. Like, there's a shortage in restaurants, and I just think it's so cool to see all of it come together. That was probably something I probably like the most. And then I think now, like, again, I don't want to say I'm an expert, but I definitely know a lot about what's going on in the market and everything like that. So I think it's really cool to see like how far I've come over the last 2 months, just kind of learning and looking into the market and things like that.
I mean, but one thing that like I think if someone listening to this like wants to hear is that you're very good at accepting all tasks. Like you never kind of were anti anything from like, hey, pack up these boxes to paint this wall. You never really got that mad at me for anything. So, I mean, that's a key attribute to have, especially as an intern, is like recognize that like, hey, this is just learning. Like, this isn't my career. This isn't anything. I'm going to learn what I like, learn what I don't like. I'm going to kind of understand that like there's a process to when I'm moving forward and trying to get exposure to all this stuff. And you did a really good job of taking that head on.
Thanks.
Especially because you joined us at such a weird period of time. Like, we literally, you and I were sitting out in an open, like on a desk at one point, to like sitting in here into an office. And to like, up. Yeah, we glue up. You've done this so many times. You've hit this mic twice.
Excited.
Yeah, we glue up, and that's got you too much. But yeah, I mean, that if there's one attribute I would say that like, especially take this to anywhere else you're going, it is that idea that, hey, give me what you got. Like, I'm going to take my attention. I may hate what you're giving me, i.e. deduplicating is probably your most...
I love it.
You're ready to murder me if I say that word again. But that type of stuff, you approached it head on, and you were very great at accepting that type of stuff. I mean, what was the thing that like... It sounds like that newsletter thing was pretty cool to give you that. I mean, full disclosure, I was the same way when I came in. I was like, I know logistics. I could do this. This isn't that hard. I came from an engineering company. That's math. That's complicated. I get here. I'm like, what the hell are they saying? Like, what does LTL mean? I'm like trying to figure all that stuff out. They use words interchangeably. Like, It's fun. But I think it's really cool that you like that exposure. I mean, what has anything changed for kind of class load, anything like that you're like, man, when I go back to Bryant, I want to take these classes. I want to kind of get more exposure to this type of stuff. Has anything changed for you there?
I think I have to take like the core like global supply chain classes, but I'm really excited for my class because I'm hoping like I kind of know what's going on already. Because at first I was like, okay, like it's my major, but now I'm really excited to kind of learn kind of in a classroom instead of in a business and kind of compare the two because I'll be doing this internship kind of like side by side. So I think it'll be cool to kind of keep up with the market with the internship and then learn about like what you learn about in a classroom. So I think I'm really excited for that part of it.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing because you're going to stick on with us through the fall semester too, but we're going to just cut your hours a lot drastically because you were doing 40 hours a week here. Because of you, I tried to give you time off. I tried to say enjoy the damn summer, but you're like, what am I going to do? It's raining out.
It is raining all the time.
You're like, Chili's is too far away from me anyways.
I've never even been to Chili's.
Yeah, you're dying to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, especially kind of that stuff. What didn't you like? What was something, I mean, helping me, right? What was something like, dude, you freaking idiot. You didn't like talk to me at all during this thing, or you could have done this better. Deduplicating.
Yeah, probably just that, which is like, it's like helping the company at the end of the day. But no, because I liked just like sitting in meetings and kind of hearing people talk and hearing like what they say. And I know sometimes the times didn't work out, but I don't even know. I liked a lot. I don't like have anything I didn't like. I think just kind of learning hands-on with something I was completely new to was really cool and definitely gained a lot of experience.
So what would you say? Like how have you been explaining this internship to your friends? How have you been explaining kind of supply chain to your friends?
I think they kind of know what supply chain is. I just kind of explain it as like FreightPlus does supply chain for companies. And then I'll be like, I do marketing, I write newsletters, that kind of thing. But I like to say I work for a managed transportation company because I don't think they know what that means and I sound pretty cool. So just that kind of thing. I just like to make it sound really sophisticated.
Great. The thing I've been trying to figure out how to make this explain, you use it because people can't figure it out. Wonderful. Great, Lucy. You've been in the meetings where you've heard me say, like, how the hell do I make people understand what managed trans is? And you're like, this is opposite. Perfect. No one knows this crap. I look smart.
I sound really smart.
You're like, I'm painted.
I know, it's all I did.
What about, I mean, have you hyped any of your buddies up? Like, is it like about coming to the supply chain? Like, what do you think, like, why do you think that there's less younger people coming to the supply chain? What's some misconceptions you think are out there about this?
I just think it's a lot easier I don't want to say easier, but people kind of know marketing, they know finance, they know, like sciences. It's just kind of things they know, and the logistics industry is kind of unknown to a lot of people. Like you're not really in it as a kid and it's not really something people consider right away. I know I didn't consider it right away. And I feel like it's something you kind of fall into if you like doing the things like that. But I don't know, I feel like it's not super known and people they don't really look into like, oh, how did my dinner get to my table? Just kind of, I don't know. This, no.
Quit. You don't cut any cuts on this. I don't know why you keep
I don't know
signaling
why
like
I'm
we're
trying
cutting
to think.
something. No, I think exposure is an interesting thing. Like I said, the pandemic is probably going to help pave a little bit more. It's going to help people be a little more exposed. At the same time, it was an old industry. I mean, what was something that surprised you of just like, oh man, you guys do it like that when there's this technology? Was there anything like that surprised you?
I don't think anything surprised me because I didn't really know what to expect coming in, but I think like the TMS system and the BI tools were really cool. I had no idea they even existed, but I think just like a cool way to organize it to have like your clients and everyone kind of see what's going on with like all the loads and everything. I think that was super cool and I didn't even think about it existing, but that was awesome.
So the amount that the carrier ops team's on the phone doesn't blow your mind? Because that would be something like, I know it's cringe to be on the phone, as you TikTok babies like to say. But like that wasn't something that was like, oh man, like I can't believe so much is done via a person talking.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really think about that either because a lot of things are like going more to AI now and I thought it was cool. It's like still a lot of human interaction. Like I hear them calling everyone boss over the phone and like trying to make jokes and things like that. So, and it seems like they're really trying to make like relationships with the carriers. So I think that's awesome. But yeah, I guess like a lot of it is still like, and I know the account management team is always in meetings, like talking to the clients and it's not like, oh, a computer does this. Like it's real people doing all the work still, which I think is really cool.
That's awesome. All right. Gas up a TikTok, baby. Tell them why they should do it like a supply chain. Why should they think about internships? What was so cool about this that like, hey, I'm speaking direct to you. I know your language. You use all your TikTok words. Gas them up. Let's go.
TikTok babies. No. I think doing an internship was really cool because I got a ton of experience that I never would have got like in a class or anything in school. Like I got to come into an office, and I think office culture was really important too, to learn. Like in the kitchen, you just kind of have these like small talks really quick. You just learn little things about people, which I thought was really cool. And there's just like a lot of hands-on experience, like sitting in meetings, kind of just talking to people, learning about what they do. That you can't get anywhere else. And you kind of learn what you like and learn what you don't like. Like I know I kind of like marketing, but I really like logistics. So that kind of solidified it, just kind of being here and learning that.
In full disclosure, we definitely were following COVID guidelines. Everyone's vaccinated. We're a small enough organization, stuff like that. But that's pretty... It's interesting to me. I mean, there's that whole talk about like who needs to go back to the office. But I think that's one thing that, like you said, like I got exposure to company culture, and those little things, like you could read in a book of how important a water cooler is, but you don't get it, right? Like you do have to have some exposure, and there's things that are just very difficult to be able to kind of have connections with. We did do a hybrid approach, right? You did work from home a decent amount because you couldn't get a car. But you worked from home, you did all that. We had plenty of technology. I mean, like you said, like you went to college, like you immediately had to do the flip the switch, like Thanos light, like snapped his fingers. And you were like, all right, we're home. I got to figure out how I'm going to communicate with professors, other students and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting of like hearing that, right? Because that's one thing that everyone's like, well, why even go back? Go full remote. What's the point of going back?
Yeah.
You're like, there is that kind of, how do I get to know people? How do I get to build personal relationships? Because at the end of the day, as much as technology is coming into supply chain and logistics, you get a really good exposure that it's still a relationship based experience.
No, I remember talking to Dan because my first week I got to talk to people and like learn what they do and everything. And I asked everyone at the end what's something they recommend, like I do, or like advice. And Dan said to value relationships because that's huge in the industry. And I've always kind of remembered that. And because everyone's still talking to everyone, it's like I said, it's not a computer. So I thought that was really cool. And kind of going off of the office thing, like, so I'm going to be a junior. Like this is my first real like big internship. So people my age like don't really know, especially office culture. Like we probably all worked in like restaurants and like retail stores. Like it's a lot different. And I think it's really cool to experience that because it's definitely new to everyone like my age at least.
Yeah, no, I bet you probably had the same vision I did of like, you think of the show The Office. And you're like, it's going to be just like that. You're like,
there's
wait
no hidden camera.
Yeah, no, it's right there. And I'm filming you the whole time.
I was like, what?
No. I got things to say, but before I kind of transition to that, before we start to wrap, any questions for me?
Yeah, I actually do have some questions. So,
you get one.
Okay.
No, whatever. Go ahead.
Okay. Kind of how did you end up at FreightPlus? Like, what was your journey to get here?
It was a fun one. Basically, from Florida, as you're painfully aware, all that fun stuff.
Where did you go to college?
Yeah, Florida State. You want to make fun of me? I know.
Do they have a football team?
They do, Brian. All right. Funny. It's like we're on Who's on First comedy you're doing over here. Came up here. It was, like I said, I worked for a newspaper. I was doing radio in college. I was in communications. I like that stuff. But again, it was like, I really didn't know what I wanted. I didn't do a business class. I did Latin, and somehow like I went to Miami on a Spanish field trip, even though I never took Spanish. But Florida education is completely different than up here. So yeah, I was more or less doing communications. I was getting exposure to it. I liked radio. I liked newspaper. I knew newspaper was dying. Came up here. I was able to get into video. So I got into video production, was doing live streaming. I really liked that. I like telling a complete story though. So I kind of got annoyed with like what I was doing as a production company because you kind of just tell a one-off and you move on. So end up working for a nonprofit doing their video stuff. And there was a ton of stories I got to tell there, but I got a little bored, / like I didn't really like the stories were about like death and how fire is like a very devastating thing. And I'm like, all right, really can't keep doing this type of stuff. So this was a kind of family connection. My family has a little connection with Jill. They had lost their director of marketing to FreightWaves, which is that big one. You know them, Dooner. Mm-hmm. You heard them a bunch. So yeah, I kind of was, again, this cocky, like, I know everything. I've done it all. I've worked for a production company. I've done streams for giant companies. How hard would freight be? And like my first week here, I was like deer in the headlights. What the hell did I do?
Freight.
Oh, I was like, oh my God, I had a cushy job at that nonprofit. I just like, why did I do this? Why did I do this? But it was just exposure. Like you're saying, right? It's being in those meetings. It's why I push you so hard to go into account meetings. Because once you start seeing that, you're kind of hearing how there are problems, and you're like, oh, wow. Like it is kind of like clicks. Secret knowledge that you kind of get. And that's sort of what got me kind of hyped on this. Is because you're like, oh, yeah, I understand why like the Chick-fil-A sandwich like isn't coming here. Or what was the Papa? The Chick-fil-A sauce, the Popeyes sandwich that was gone. Yeah, those little things. And then like even during the pandemic, it was that where it's like, my wife's like, why are you freaking out about like toilet paper? There'll be more toilet paper. I'm like, no, like the supply chain doesn't work like that. She's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, you dummy. I know this more than you.
That was me.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was sort of how I got here. And then kind of how I like, oh, this is kind of fun is kind of where I got from.
So did you come up with the idea of consulting logistics or
No. It was Dooner, Tim Dooner on FreightWaves. He's the one who did it. It was a really smart idea. I was doing podcasts too, like in the nonprofit. So that was one of the things that perked my ears up was like, oh, they're doing the podcast. And like, I really believe in the power that companies putting out educational content. I'm not a really well-written person. I hate writing. If you ever read my stuff, you can always find a typo or a grammar issue. But yeah, that was where I was like, oh, cool. They're doing podcasts. And I stupidly was like, well, I could do these limited run series where I go follow a company for like 2 weeks and like talk about their like supply chain and understand all this stuff. And then I got here, I'm like, what the hell? Supply chain is so much more complicated.
Yeah.
Still want to do that. I'd love to talk to like the carriers, the warehouse, talk to procurement, have like a cool little like exposure type of thing. There's a bunch of different ideas I have, but yeah, that was sort of, I was doing podcasts. Tim Dooner was doing consulting logistics. He moved on. And then they were like, well, we still like this. We still want to do it. It's a really good exposure to the younger professionals that are coming up because like you guys are using YouTube. You do search podcasts. You are listening and stuff like that. So that was why we wanted to keep it going at FreightPlus.
Yeah. I guess my last question. So besides having an intern, what is your favorite part of what you do at FreightPlus?
Favorite part of what I do at FreightPlus, right now, this past 2 months has been chaotic. You've experienced it, but you've been extreme helpful. But we're developing kind of business processes, and like one cool thing about us is we're 30 years, but we're 30-year company, but we're still building processes, and we're not so large that it's like this monolith to move anything or get anything done. You've been exposed to all these types of stuff. You get to really make a lasting effect on a business that's like one of the fastest growing managed transportation. We're in this field that's really cool because it's stuff like Uber Freight purchasing Transplace and all these things that you get to see. You're like, holy crap. And like, you've seen our growth. You've kind of starting to see a little bit about like, wow, where they were to like just the past 3 months is really cool. Those types of things are exciting to me because like, all right, cool. I'm learning. I'm getting exposure to stuff that like, I know video like the back of my hand. There's parts of this studio that get me mad because I'm like, damn, why did I make that mistake? But yeah, I mean, it's those process building and like documentation and that type of stuff. It sounds boring, but it is cool because like when you're working, right, when you first start off, you're going to jump into these companies and you'll be like, all right, cool. This is how this is done. I'm just going to learn how that works and I can work around this. There's some critical thinking, but a lot of it's more or less like the task is already outlined. Your critical thinking is like, okay, how do I achieve this task in the most efficient and effective way? What we're doing now is like, all right, how do we create this task? Which I'm finding to be more stimulating to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really cool. I created a lot of SOPs, and I thought it was really cool to kind of be a part of something bigger. Like I know for me, it was just kind of like creating something, but I know it'll be used in the future. And especially with the revamping of the sales process, I know all the meetings, I'm just kind of like, this is kind of the foundation for the sales. And I think that's really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, no, it's been fun to give you exposure to that as much as you hate marketers and hate everyone here. So yeah, I mean, the last question is, I mean, rate your 2 internships. What was the better one?
Oh, this one for sure.
Suck it, nerds. No, I'm just messing with you. I mean, I pay you after this. But Lucy, you've been awesome. I mean, it definitely is something that you've heard me say in meetings, but I'll say it again. Like, you leaving is going to be something that I'm not looking forward to because of the sheer amount of work that you've taken on, but also the creativity, the critical thinking, everything that you're doing with this, dude. You're doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
Keep pushing yourself. Always use us as a reference with it. Whatever you need, continue getting exposure. Don't keep getting out there, learning what you like, kind of try to get exposure into other types of things too. But you got a good head on your shoulders. And that's mainly because you do so many headers with soccer and whatnot. Yeah, good luck getting sponsored by Chili's. Anyone out there that wants to be name, image, likeness for this one, reach out to her. She can get you 50 likes on a Instagram post, and they're mainly her mom's friends.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But local Bryant alumni or Providence, right? That's where Bryant is? Yeah.
Or anyone.
Anyone in the business area, reach out to Lucy Smith at Bryant Soccer.
But definitely do that.
It's been so much fun with you, bud. I had a blast talking to you, dude. Can't wait for you to edit this and distribute it. Tell me which one you think were the best clips. I'm sure that's going to be a blast to see what you thought was great.
No.
But yeah, dude, we'll keep in touch.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. See ya.
Bye.
Why are you laughing?
Why did I say bye?
And that's our show. Are you a supply chain professional under the age of 30 interested in talking about your journey? Let me know in the comments section and I'll be sure to have you on the show. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I'm Kyle McNaught. Rock and roll.